we are asked to say, what does this review about the extent of the dragon's jurisdiction on this earth? Does anybody care to share on that point? It says, what does this review about the extent of the dragon's jurisdiction? As we've read Revelation 13, 1 to 8, where we see that power was given to him to rule over the world. And he says, anybody that does not follow God will automatically fall in that camp, and he shall be ruled by the dragon. So what does this review about the extent of the dragon's jurisdiction? When we see here, we see that he's given power to rule the world. And anybody that does not fall under God is in that category. And this is the same thing when we look at when we looked at the summary of Job. When Satan was going to and from, God says, "Where are you coming from?" Again, he asks him, "Say, have you considered my servant Job?" See, so God gave him the authority to go and do what? Tempt Job, but do not touch his life. Even here, when we look here, we see that the dragon is given power to rule the world, nations and tongues, but only those that are not following what? God. Just like Job followed God and he stood still in God. Just like Paul again tells us, how do you and me overcome? He tells us, is Christ in? I live, but not I, but Christ in me. So when these things are happening to us, the only way that we overcome is having Christ in us. Because we can see clearly here when we are asked, what does this review about the extent of the dragon's jurisdiction? He's been given authority over the world. And those that are not following God fall in that camp where he can do things with full authority. The only safety that you and I have is in God. And then the writer goes on to tell us the dragon not only was against God and his servants, but he is depicted as the ruler behind the earthly kingdoms who persecute God's people throughout the ages. The dragon gave his power, his throne, and great authority to the beast from the sea. And it goes, it asks us to compare Revelation 5 and Revelation 17, 13, and 14. Can somebody open Revelation 13, verse 5? You can put up your hand if you found it. And then somebody else, if they can open Revelation chapter 17, 13, and 14. So he goes on to say, his power, his authority, and great authority to the beast from the sea. Then we compare that the beast from the sea is given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months. If somebody can just quickly read 13 verse 5. If you don't have. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months.
Yes. And then if we can read 17, 13, and 14.
These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. Faithful,
yes. Again, when you read this in its entirety, you see that the protection that we have as children of God is in Christ. Christ has overcome. So for you and me, in this world that we live in, the only way that we are safe is if we let Christ reign supreme in our lives. When we put Christ first, when we die daily, as Paul puts it, you ought to die to yourself daily. What's that? We ought to pray daily. We ought to read his word. Not only are we doing that, as we go to work, we ought to be an example for our fellow workers to show them that Christ liveth in you. Even when they scream at you, you choose to go in a corner and pray for them and pray for yourself and say, God, help my temper. Let me not say something that is not right, because you've chosen to die to self. Because if self is to reign supreme, you would answer back and lash back at your coworker or somebody that is making you angry. But the key is to die daily. And when we have Christ in us, then we will live a life that is worthwhile in his sight. And that's how we become comfortable. Not only comfortable, but we are assured, and we have this hope, the great hope. So if we go on to Tuesday, it says the case of Job. I'll have somebody open Job chapter 1, 1 to 12. And somebody else can open Job chapter 2, 1 to 7. In the book of Job, we are given some fascinating insights into the reality of the great controversy. When we read the great controversy, it's the controversy that set in as he's accusing God, that God does not love us. God, the way he does things is not with love. And God here, he's on the stand being judged. Not only, like our sister said here, not only are we people seeing this, but the angels are also looking and seeing, what is this happening? Because they also want to fully understand, such that at the end of time, when we're in heaven, we'll be able to stand. And that's why when we're in heaven and we look back, we would not have it any other way, because now we understand what this is. And this is what is happening right now. Why we are choosing our God first. Why we put God first in our lives. Does anybody have Job chapter 1, 1 to 12? You can just put your hand up. Thank you, Sue.
Sorry if anybody else finds it. It got close. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, one that feared God and eschewed evil. And there was born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yokes of oxen and 500 she-asses, and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the east. And his sons went and feasted in their houses every one his day, and sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it might be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, and that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made an hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath and on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands and his substance, his increase in the land. But put forth thine hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy hand, is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen that were plowing and the asses feeding.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. 1 to 12, sorry. I know this book is, I I enjoy reading the book of Job. It's very interesting, an insight on the love of God, and also an insight on how much we don't know that happens around us. But when you see this again, you see the authority that God gave to Satan on Job's life. So he went to and from, he said, don't touch his life, but touch his possession. So there's rules of engagement. From the previous, from Monday, we see why there's rules of engagement. There are certain things that Satan can do, and there are certain things that God can do. But in all, we have God's character being judged.